This installment of the Anguilla Financial Services Commission's FinTech and Compliance webinar series was recorded on location at Villa Amarilla in Anguilla, British West Indies.
Mrs. Tisa James Hodge brings a wealth of knowledge in compliance. Mrs. James Hodge's extensive experience includes being an assessor with the British Virgin Islands National Risk Assessment, compliance examiner with the BVI Finance Intelligence Agency. Presently, Mrs. James Hodge is the compliance manager with the Ogiers Group. In addition, she is the chair of the BVI Association of Compliance Officers and an executive member of the Caribbean Region Compliance Association. Tisa, the work of the compliance professional continues to be compared to an ultra-marathon. There are so many things that a compliance professional has to do in this day and age. Keeping up to date with the developments in terms of the varying international standards and having to apply these international standards to local regulations, updating the various manuals, training staff, applying the different policies and procedures, and testing your internal systems, even further reporting to the board of directors. And all of this at the same time while doing your continuing professional development. This surely points Tisa as to why compliance professional can be seen as being critical to the success of the financial firm, and I even go further to say possibly the financial services industry. In terms of the letters, we spoke about OECD, FATF, and these letters are crucial to the financial services, especially as it relates to compliance. Today we want to talk about what is important for compliance professionals and how to succeed by those letters. Now, there's a bit of play on the letters, FATF and OECD, in terms of standard setters, in terms of their issuing standards and imposing sanctions. How do you build on the compliance framework, or for existing practitioners, how do you rebuild a compliance framework?
Well, Tina, I think when we say rebuild, I think we should build or transform your existing compliance approach. What you may need to do as a compliance professional is build on the approach. While it's not just the compliance officer's responsibilities, the board's responsibility, it's the board's responsibility as well to walk hand in hand with the compliance professional. They need to do an assessment of the business risk, an assessment of your compliance function, an assessment in terms of whether it is still, the policies and procedures are still appropriate for the organization with these changes internationally and locally. One of the areas that we have looked at is looking at your first line defense, your second line defense, the third line defense, looking at your business management, your compliance function, your internal audit function. We need the board to set that tone at the top, and they need to establish whether the risk appetite are still appropriate for the business itself. That goes back through your risk management framework, the compliance structure, your strategy, is it still working? Your compliance management information, is there enough information for compliance to report to? Trusted data for them, resourcing. When you say resourcing, it should be financial and human resourcing in terms of the things that you need to do. Technology plays a big role as well. And with all of this, you should still continue to have your dialogue with the regulators as well.
You've said quite a bit there, and you surely laid out a very good framework. Can you speak to some of the challenges that may exist in the financial services industry that may impede a compliance professional from building a robust compliance framework?
Well, obviously, it's change. Keeping up with change in the regulatory environment are some of the challenges right now. Whether you have the appropriate tools internally to meet those changes, whether you have the resources, financial resources to make the changes. Also, the impacts that it would have on your clients as well. Whether you need to decide if the your risk appetite for clients has to change now. May need to consider de-risking. You also need to consider your financial crime is evolving. We need to have innovation as well internally to identify increasing risk for financial crime. These are some of the challenges that I would see compliance officers having within these times.
Okay. You spoke about clients, and I'm aware that there may be various types of clients in terms of certainly um, new clients as times go along. Well, when it comes to onboarding of clients, could you speak to the compliance system? Like, what are the key takeaways in terms of making sure you get that right in terms of the actual onboarding of clients?
With the onboarding of clients, I think it also has to do with your having a screening process for your client before onboarding. It goes back to technology again. What tools do you have in place to verify your clients? Tools you have to verify source of funds, source of wealth information. Do we continue to do these things manually, or it should be a combination of trusted data, your human resource, and to analyze that data to ensure that you're onboarding your clients properly. Could you repeat the other half of the question, Tina?
I was asking, what are some of the key takeaways in terms of getting this right in terms of the onboarding process?
Right. So even with getting it right, I don't think you can completely get it right, but at least those tools that I've mentioned will be able to assist you in determining whether the client is the right fit for you in terms of your risk. It goes back to your risk appetite as well, your risk-based approach. Also, whether the person is the right fit, or whether they have given you key areas or key alerts that this client doesn't sit right with us. Let's not take on this business. Having the business deciding that this is the approach you want to take. Senior management signing off on high risk matters. It's not just the compliance officers. It's not the compliance officer's decision. It's also the business decision. Together, making that decision on whether you can, take on that relationship.
You're certainly taking a risk-based approach to the entire matter, which is excellent, and certainly making the job of a regulator much easier. So what role do you see the regulator as playing in relation to compliance professionals as they engage in this important work?
Well, I see us as all gatekeepers, including our internal staff. As a regulator, the information that we provide the regulator, that they're able to use that information to find the criminals or guard against any criminal activities. I know that from a regulator perspective, we would expect that you're also thinking about technology and the changes within the environment, in terms of also having that constant dialogue with the licensees. Ensure that you're giving enough guidance. Sometimes legislation is not very clear to the industry. Having that dialogue to clarify a few things so that we can get it right, so that you can get the correct information or the right information for you to analyze at the end of the day as well.
You spoke earlier about financial crime. Can you discuss the utility of SARs and what is your view on filing SARs during the onboarding process? And even if a potential client is not accepted?
Okay, so we've the BVI ACO recently had a webinar with our local financial investigation agency that spoke about SARs. We've revamped our local SAR requirements. So with onboarding of clients, while we may not have enough information to file, I would agree that we should file even if we have not accepted the client. We're leveling the playing field where if we send over the information to the authorities and another person picks them up, then they're able to say, okay, they can see a trend here, they can pick up the investigation on their end. So we were able to understand why the Financial Investigation Agency needed us to file more SARs, to file information, anything that we have to file. If we find things are suspicious, they can pick up on their end, even if there is no connection as a business relationship, not having a business relationship with the client.
Okay. Let us look at your legacy business. What do you see as a critical success factor in terms of ongoing monitoring?
Well, a critical factor for ongoing monitoring is also having that risk-based approach still within that ongoing monitoring approach, ensuring that client still fits your risk appetite. You, as I said earlier, you may want to consider de-risking a few clients, or reassess to see if they fit your the company's profile within your policies and procedures. Some clients may not like it, but unfortunately, we're in a time that we have to assess our risk on clients. In terms of ongoing monitoring as well, it should be live monitoring internally. Things are changing so rapidly. I would consider persons getting overnight screenings so that your screenings are live. You're false positive. We cannot continue to do things manually anymore. Find solutions to get your false positive down. You may need more staff. Again, it's a combination of human and technology together to analyze the information. And that will assist with ongoing monitoring as well. Once your overnight screening is live, you can pick up on any news article or adverse media overnight that for an existing client that may not be appropriate for your business.
Yeah, I certainly like the idea in terms of the screening process, where it's a continuous process. And as you mentioned, the false negatives as well, that could be an issue. So it certainly sounds as if you have a very good framework in terms of the actual ongoing monitoring. How would financial services professionals avoid becoming complacent with long-lived client relationships? I don't know if you can sort of give us your view in relation to that.
Well, with the existing clients, as I said, it is still that risk-based approach, where you may require to, resign from these companies, and they're not no longer within your risk appetite, and you can just resign. I can't see how we can hold on to those, because we have these obligations now, internally, reporting beneficial ownership information, filing directors information. I mean, if the clients are not able to give up information quickly as well, if the clients are dormant, you just get rid of them. In this case, I would say clean house.
Yeah, I certainly like the concept. It's such a struggle in terms of having those particular relationships, but yet you have to comply, and certainly you'd have to take the tough road, really. So I could understand the struggle.
Yeah, and as I said, it's not the compliance officer's decision, it's the business decision. And at the end of the day, the business are the ones who are putting these the policies, approving the policies in place. And you want to keep that standard going forward so that you can get the bad eggs out. Or I wouldn't say they're all bad eggs, but it's just that, they no longer fit your risk. Why take the risk on maintaining existing clients that are not within your risk appetite?
Yes, certainly. As a secretary of a regional compliance association, can you give your view as to the role that associations can and should play in building up compliance within the jurisdiction?
Well, as the CRCA, the vision is actually to educate the professionals within the region, to have a forum for the Caribbean region to speak about compliance issues among the region. The local association, founding associations, are also their vision also play on the CRCA's vision, where we ensure that compliance officers have an avenue to voice their opinions on legal matters or legislative matters that may affect the industry or the compliance officer's role. Also speak about having training for compliance professionals where firms are unable to provide training for them. Have an open dialogue with the regulators to speak about issues that may be existing within the compliance officer's view. So locally, I think this is our standard within all the other jurisdictions. Also, where our theme is to ensure that we get every compliance association in every country to join the regional association, so we can support each other, provide forum for information, and how we can make things better for the reputation of the Caribbean region.
Well, that certainly was a pitch for the association. I hope compliance professionals would move in that direction. But more broadly, what opportunities do you see for persons interested in becoming compliance professionals in years to come?
At the moment, for persons who are trying to come into the industry, the main focus is build on your skill set. We're looking for individuals who can write rules, policies, and procedures, good communication skills, the technology age as well, coming with a background with technology. I think I've read somewhere where businesses operations are now between 10% or 10 to 20% for their operational costs for compliance. I think during this pandemic, you can find a compliance officer job anywhere in the world that is advertising right now. So it's a perfect field to get into in terms of a compliance professional, picking up a compliance course, working with IT and compliance, which is more so very important now. Different areas of the compliance structure has changed, where we have sanctions departments, we have an area just for CDD collection. You can now broaden your scope for the structure, the strategy of your compliance framework. So there are so many opportunities for persons to come within the field, and compliance is universal. The hospitals everywhere, different businesses, insurance, not even in financial services, need compliance officers.
Mm-hmm. And that really is a good point, in that compliance really extends across all industries, and the need to know legislation and the rules and procedures, as well as you even mentioned, technology now is also playing a big role. But in terms of the finer points of compliance, can you speak to governance requirements for board of directors in relation to compliance?
With the governance requirements, it is very key that you have a good governance structure in place. The board definitely sets the tone at the top. You're ensuring that at board level that they are aware of local legislation requirement, ensuring that the compliance culture is they embody the compliance culture within the organization. um, they themselves also following the rules and not finding loopholes where where they would ask compliance, can we have an exemption here, stick to your governance structure, having proper reporting. Also training is key among the governance structure. Ensure that you have your there's a whole list of stuff. Business continuity areas are key as well. Me having quarterly or very regular meetings, or even if it's just ad hoc meetings with your senior managers or your compliance officers to ensure that things are going okay. The policies and procedures that you put in place are effective. Are they still working? Do we need to tweak things here and there? Consider doing assessment of the board itself, doing succession planning. These are the key things that from a governance structure that the board should be thinking about.
Yeah, you mentioned some very key points there in terms of business continuity and succession planning, which is something that a lot of financial services firms really need to think about in terms of the next step. So I thought that was very critical that you touch on such a key point. So thank you for that. In terms of compliance being embedded into bonuses, what is your view in relation to that?
Well, you say bonuses. Let's take a step backward or two-step backwards to the employee's objectives. I think it should be the objectives, even your job descriptions, that where we should embed compliance roles or duties within those areas that builds into your appraisal process and then your bonus process as well.
Mandatory rotations of other staff into compliance. Very interesting topic. Can you speak to that?
Very interesting. I wouldn't say that it's mandatory. At the end of the day, you want persons who are comfortable working in compliance to stay in compliance, who likes the role as well. I would say give an opportunity to staff internally on whether they would like the opportunity in working in compliance, which goes back to succession planning, where if you realize that you don't have any staff that would like to rotate into the compliance department, you should consider, okay, what are the next steps? Who do we have in line to replace? Like, for instance, if God forbid something happens to myself, that you would have someone sitting in the role temporarily. We can't have the directors doing everything. So in terms of mandatory rotation, I would say it's a rotation, but you want that individual to love compliance, or at least like doing the job itself, like reading and actually like doing what the compliance job in the first place. You don't want to have someone who's sitting in the role and okay, they don't have a clue, and despite receiving training, they're just not interested.
Yeah, you've said quite a bit in terms of the role of the compliance professionals. Are there any opportunities that remain untapped?
Yeah, there are opportunities that remain untapped. I find myself trying to read more information to stay up to date on changes within the environment. Sanctions is one of the biggest thing right now within the compliance field. Blockchain, FinTech, products and services, compliance professionals should take the opportunity to understand how these products works, understand how we can analyze the risk in these areas. Other opportunities for younger persons, I would say coming out of high school to come in as CDD officers or junior compliance administrators. There are several international courses out there for BVI. The ICA is the benchmark for the regulator. So there are so many opportunities. We spoke about IT area, the IT as well. The IT departments work very closely with the compliance department in terms of data integrity, in terms of phishing emails. I know there's been, since the pandemic, there's been a growth in phishing emails, people attacking your IT systems, having internal procedures in place as well for IT information. So there are so many areas within the risk compliance department that individuals can pick. It can be sanctions, it could be CDD collection area, it could be policies, it could be governance, it could be risk. The compliance department is expanding, and I don't see it getting smaller anytime soon. I think the 2020 and beyond compliance departments will be structured differently to analyze the risk around the organization.
Great. That leads up to my next question. What capacity building activities can you point to for future compliance professionals seeking to get a better understanding in this space?
When you say capacity building, it goes back to the different forums, going to material, the different international training areas like the ICA, ACAMS, going to read more forums like Ogiers itself has articles out there on different areas of compliance, keeping up to date with the information, building your skill set. These are some of the key capacity areas that I think may help compliance professionals. I can also see lawyers and directors transferring into the compliance role more or so recently, and accountants moving away from their regular legal and accounting, and also the directorships role, and moving into the space of compliance with their experience from the business itself. So I think I've touched on most of it as well in my last response to your previous question.
Yes. Thank you, Tisa. This has been an excellent dialogue in terms of the role of compliance professionals. You've clearly laid out the amount of work involved, basically what is expected, what persons should do in terms of actual setting the stage for the success of the financial services firm as well as the industry, as well as laying out basically what professionals should do to continue to ensure that they are up to speed in terms of being able to deal with the different challenges that may come their way. So certainly you've laid out a very good framework for compliance professionals today. So I want to thank you for your being here with us on behalf of the Financial Services Commission here in Anguilla. This has been an excellent dialogue, and we thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you, Tina. It's really great doing this as well. And I'm sure the partners as well is happy to be a part of the Anguilla webinar series.
Thank you.
The Anguilla Financial Services Commission would like to thank Ogiers BVI for their participation. Any references within this episode can be found in the links provided below. For more information on our FinTech licensed businesses, please contact us by email at innovate@afsc.ai.